Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Hey.
And welcome back to Sip and Talk.
That's my line.
I am so mad at myself today. I mean,
Tell me.
genuinely questioning my life choices.
Oh, no. What happened? Don't tell me you spilled coffee on the recording equipment again.
Worse, I went to get coffee this morning, and all I wanted was, a really strong, keep me alive all day kind of Americano.
Okay, your usual. The no-nonsense special.
Exactly. And I don't know what happened. My brain just sort of short-circuited, my finger slipped on the app, and I ended up ordering a caramel sea salt latte.
Wait, hold on. A caramel? The guy who treats sugar like it's a personal enemy?
I know. I stood there watching them make it. This sugary monstrosity, and I was just having this full-blown existential crisis.
I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh, but the mental image is just too good. Please tell me you at least drank it.
I did. I was too embarrassed not to. But with every sip, I was thinking, have I lost my ability to make good decisions? Is this a sign?
A sign of what? That your sweet tooth is finally emerging from hibernation?
No, like a sign for everything else. We talk about making smart choices on this show all the time, right? About investments, careers, and here I am, failing at a simple coffee order. What does that say about the big stuff?
Okay, you need to calm down. You're being more dramatic than a reality TV show finale. It's just a coffee.
It felt profound.
But you know what? Your little latte incident is actually the perfect setup for what we're talking about today.
So?
Think about it. You made a wrong decision, and you still got a coffee. It wasn't the one you wanted, but you got something. You took an action.
Right.
What if you had stood there in front of the counter for 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes just paralyzed by the options? What if you'd made no decision at all?
Then I'd be the tragedy of the man with no coffee. And trust me, this entire recording session would be a lot grumpier.
Exactly. And that leads us right into this classic philosophical and behavioral economics question we're diving into today. Which one actually damages your life more? Making a wrong decision or being stuck in indecision? We're going to use your caramel sea salt latte disaster to look at this idea that, doing something wrong at least gets you started. But doing nothing, it just leaves you stuck right where you are.
Yeah, that's so true. As I was angrily sipping my sweet coffee, I was thinking about how many people get stuck on that exact problem.
In what way?
Like, should I take this new job? Or should I finally invest in the market? Or should I ask that person out? Or even, should I start that YouTube channel?
And they just wait.
They wait. And at the end of the day, the biggest regret isn't that they did it and it went wrong. It's that they never did it at all.
That is the core of it. And we're going to really unpack that today. We'll get into opportunity cost, reversible versus irreversible decisions.
The two-way doors.
The two-way doors, exactly. We'll talk about why hesitating is often the most expensive option you have. And importantly, when you absolutely should not rush a decision.
Unlike my coffee order.
Unlike your coffee order. Please, never do that again. For your own sake.
Hey, I'm still emotionally recovering. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into it. Indecision versus wrong decisions. Which costs you more?
Let's do it.
So let's tackle indecision first, because I think it's the one that fools us the most. When you're hesitating, it feels smart, right? It feels like you're being careful, managing risk.
It feels safe. That's the key. You're not making a mistake, so you feel like you're winning.
But all the research, from business strategy to psychology, it all seems to say that this feeling of safety in the short term, it actually leads to the biggest losses in the long run.
It really does. And the reason for that is because the cost of indecision is made up almost entirely of, invisible costs.
Visible costs? What do you mean by that?
Things that don't show up on a bank statement. The loss is, it's implicit, it's non-material. And because you can't easily put a number on it, your brain just finds it incredibly easy to dismiss.
Okay, so what's the biggest invisible cost then?
At the very heart of it, financially speaking, is opportunity cost.
Right. The classic Econ 101 concept.
Exactly, but it's one we forget all the time. It's the hidden loss of all the good things you miss out on just because you didn't act. So if you don't invest in, say, asset A, you haven't just saved your money.
You've also lost everything that asset A would have made you.
You've implicitly lost that return. It's a phantom income. It's the ghost of a successful venture you never started.
Or the bigger salary and the faster career path you missed out on because you waited 2 extra years to switch jobs.
Yes. And you never get a bill in the mail for the money you didn't earn, right? But that money is just as gone from your net worth as if you'd actively lost it in a bad deal.
Wow. When you put it like that, it's kind of terrifying. And it just gets worse over time, doesn't it? It compounds.
That's the killer. When we talk about building anything long-term, whether it's wealth or a career, your single greatest asset is time.
So if you miss, say, the early wave of a new technology or a hot market by just a year or two,
the compounding returns you lose are exponentially bigger than the small risk you avoided by waiting on the sidelines. It's a massive, massive cost.
You're talking about the cost of timing.
The cost of timing. In any of these high-growth, fast-moving areas, tech, investing, starting a business, these opportunities are so time-sensitive.
Right. If you wait for everything to be 100% certain and safe,
you're no longer an early adopter, you're just late to the party.
And the returns are way smaller by then.
The marginal return just drops off a cliff the longer you wait. The early birds get that exponential growth curve. The latecomers, they get the flat plateau at the top.
So indecision is basically choosing the plateau from the start.
It's guaranteeing it, yeah, even though it feels like you're keeping your options open.
So let's say the market goes up 10% while you're still trying to figure out which app to use to buy a stock. You haven't really saved yourself from a potential loss.
No. You've guaranteed yourself a 10% loss of a potential gain. The cost of your inaction has already been paid. You just can't see it on your statement.
Man. Okay, but it's not just financial, right? There have to be other costs to waiting.
Oh, absolutely. We have to talk about the mental and the competitive costs of waiting.
The anxiety.
The anxiety is huge. That's the great paradox of indecision. You think you're avoiding stress by delaying the choice, but you're actually creating more of it.
It's decision fatigue.
It's total decision fatigue. The longer a big decision just sits there unresolved, the more of your mental energy your brain pours into, running simulations and worrying about every possible outcome.
And that's that vicious cycle you hear about. You're afraid of making a mistake.
So you do nothing.
Which just builds up more anxiety and mental exhaustion.
Which makes it even harder to finally make the decision. Your brain's executive function is just fried from trying to model every single unknown.
And while all this is happening in your head, the rest of the world is moving on.
Yes. That's the relative loss in competition. While you're standing still, analyzing the menu, your colleagues, your competitors, they're moving. They're trying things, getting feedback, getting funding, making mistakes, and learning from them.
So even if nothing bad happens to you directly, you're still falling behind.
It's like standing still in the middle of a race. You might feel safe because you're not risking a fall, but in a relative sense, you are losing ground with every step everyone else takes.
That's a great analogy. You also lose your ability to adapt. Right? If you're not doing anything, you're not learning anything.
You're not learning a thing. Decision-making is supposed to be this iterative process. You do something, you see what happens, you adjust, you course correct.
But if you delay taking that first step,
you can't collect any feedback. You're basically choosing to operate in a state of total ignorance. You can't optimize a process that hasn't started.
Right. You can't steer a parked car. A wrong turn at least gives you information about where not to go next. Standing still is just silence.
Or white noise. It's nothing. And maybe the most painful cost of all, the one that sticks with us for years, is the psychological one.
Long-term regret.
Long-term regret. There have been decades of research on this, and it all points to the same thing. People feel way more intense, more persistent regret from the things they didn't do.
The if only I had thoughts.
If only I had tried, or if only I'd said something. That stuff haunts people way more than the failures that came from actually taking a shot at something.
Why do you think that is? Why does the regret from inaction sting so much more?
Well, when you try something and fail, the outcome is concrete. It's real. You can process it. You can learn from it. You can blame external factors, whatever. You can eventually put it behind you.
But the what if?
The what if has no end. The regret from inaction, it tends to turn inward. It becomes self-blame, this chronic doubt. And because you never found out what would have happened, your brain is free to imagine this perfect, idealized outcome that you missed out on.
So you're not regretting a real failure. You're regretting the loss of a fantasy.
An infinitely better, perfect fantasy world you never got to enter. So yeah, indecision doesn't just cost you potential money or career growth. It builds up the psychological debt that slowly erodes your self-confidence and makes you even more scared to take risks in the future.
It's the ultimate invisible killer of potential.
It really is.
Okay, so that's a pretty damning case against indecision. Let's pivot now and talk about the alternative. Making a wrong decision, which, feels terrible in the moment.
It does. It can be painful, for sure. But the costs associated with it are fundamentally different from that slow, invisible erosion we were just talking about.
How so? I mean, a loss is a loss, right?
Yes, but the first major difference is that the costs of an error are direct and visible.
Okay, so if I make a bad stock pick, I can look at my account and see the exact amount of money I lost, down to the cent.
Exactly. Or if you launch a new product and it flops, you can quantify the hours, the resources, the marketing budget that was wasted. There's a number attached to it.
And that visibility gives you a sense of control, doesn't it?
It's all about control. The loss is measurable. It's finite. You can report it, analyze it, and most importantly, you can draw a line under it.
And that also applies to fixing the mistake.
It does. That's the correction or reversal cost. We can figure out the time, money, and effort it's going to take to undo the mistake, to cut our losses, and to start over.
So back to my coffee tragedy this morning.
The great latte fiasco of our time.
The direct cost was, what, $5 or $6? The correction cost was the 5 minutes I wasted and the fact that I had to drink water instead.
Annoying, but measurable. Bounded. You overcame it quickly.
I'm still working through it, but yes. And I guess that measurability is what leads to the biggest upside of taking action, right?
The invaluable feedback loop.
The feedback loop.
When you act, even if you fail spectacularly, the world gives you concrete, real-world signals back. Failure isn't just a loss, it's information. It's empirical data that just sitting on your hands can never, ever provide.
So a mistake you can learn from is better than doing nothing at all.
Infinitely better. It's so much easier to optimize and adjust your strategy based on a real result than it is to wait forever for the perfect plan.
That's the whole Thomas Edison thing, isn't it? The light bulb.
It's the classic example. He didn't see his hundreds of failed filaments as failures. He saw them as hundreds of data points that told him what not to do.
Each mistake was valuable information that narrowed down the possible solutions.
Exactly. The small cost of one failed experiment was worth the knowledge he gained to make sure the next one was a step closer to success.
And that also ties into this idea of having controllable boundaries.
Controllable boundaries, yes.
Yeah.
A mistake, even a painful one, is usually bounded. You can define the limits of the loss. You can implement the cut-loss principle.
So if a project is failing, you can pull the plug. You can shut down that division. You can pivot the team, sell off the assets. You say, okay, the loss stops here.
And that boundary is the critical difference. With indecision, the potential cost is, as we said, unbounded. It can just grow and grow forever. But with a wrong decision, you can quantify it and say, okay, that $5,000 is gone, but the rest of my capital, my time, my energy, that's all still intact.
Which brings us to that big corporate strategy idea you mentioned earlier, the two-way door.
Yes, the reversible decision framework. It's a huge concept in any fast-moving organization.
And the basic idea is that most decisions we make aren't actually permanent.
The vast majority of them aren't. Some people estimate that up to 90% of decisions in a business context are not irreversible. They aren't a one-way door that you can't go back through.
So a two-way door decision is one where if you mess it up, it's pretty easy to adjust.
The cost of reversing it is way lower than we tend to fear. Most things, like, a hiring choice, a marketing campaign, a new software feature, a small investment, they all fall into this category.
The analogy I've heard is the difference between buying the wrong shirt, which you can just return or donate or wear when you're painting the house, versus getting a giant tattoo on your face.
Exactly. One is a minor reversible inconvenience. The other fundamentally and permanently changes things.
Okay, but I want to add a bit of nuance there, because even a reversible decision isn't totally free, is it?
That is an excellent point. There are often hidden reversal costs that go beyond just money.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say a CEO decides to reverse a major strategic pivot for the company. The financial cost might be zero, but what about the cost to employee morale?
Oh, right. The engineering team that just spent 6 months working 18-hour days on the wrong thing.
They're going to be burned out. They might lose faith in the leadership. You could have people quitting. So the decision is technically reversible, but the organizational price you pay can be really high.
So even wrong action is never completely without consequence.
It's never free. But, and this is the key, when you weigh that bounded tangible cost against the compounding invisible costs of just stagnating and losing opportunities, the learning value from taking action almost always wins out.
Because you get experience, you get feedback, you get momentum.
And all of that fuels the next, hopefully better, decision.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. We've got this trade-off. The invisible, nagging regret of inaction versus the visible, learnable cost of a mistake.
That's the core of it.
So now we need a practical framework. How can you, our listener, figure out which approach is right for a given situation? When do you need to move at lightning speed? And when is hesitating actually the smart, rational choice?
The framework for this really comes down to assessing two key variables for any decision.
And those are?
Reversibility and risk.
Right.
Or, leverage. Where a decision falls on that spectrum changes everything.
Okay, let's start with the situations where indecision is the most dangerous path you can take.
This is when a decision is, broadly speaking, reversible, has high growth potential, and is critically time-sensitive.
So scenario one would be growth industries, right?
Yeah.
Competitive markets.
Exactly. Think about the early days of a new technology or a boom in a certain sector. If you wait too long to get in, the market matures, the big players establish their positions.
And the opportunity for those huge outsized returns just disappears. The market is not going to wait for you to feel 100% certain.
It never does. This also applies directly to scenario two, other competitive, time-sensitive environments.
Like career moves.
Career moves, launching a new product, even something like bidding on a contract. If you're late, you're at a serious disadvantage. You lose that first mover advantage, or you end up having to pay a much higher price to try and catch up.
And then most of our day-to-day decisions probably fall into the third scenario, right? Mm-hmm. The easily correctable ones.
For sure. Things like choosing a new software for your team, deciding on a short-term marketing slogan, even making a general investment in a diversified fund.
The cost of getting those slightly wrong is pretty minimal.
It's so low, you can just cancel the software subscription or tweak the campaign. So the cost of waiting around for perfect information is way, way higher than the risk of making a small mistake.
So the takeaway for this whole category is pretty clear.
If the decision is reversible and time matters, you have to move fast. Treat it like a small experiment, a small bet, and just go.
All right, now for the flip side. The scary ones. The true one-way doors, where making a wrong decision is actually catastrophic.
This is where delay becomes your friend. It's a protective measure.
So this would be scenario one, irreversible commitments.
These are the big, high-stakes decisions that permanently change your life structure. The classic example is buying a house with a massive 30-year mortgage.
Right. Or signing a really restrictive legal contract that you can't get out of, or making a major health decision.
With these, the consequence of being wrong isn't just a small financial hit. It's a fundamental shift in your reality that is either impossible or incredibly costly to undo. This is not like ordering the wrong coffee.
No, this is being stuck with a 30-year payment on a house that's falling down.
Precisely. Then we have scenario two, high leverage or high-risk operations.
You're talking about financial trading here, mostly.
Mostly. When you're using a lot of leverage, a tiny, normally manageable mistake in predicting the market can lead to instant liquidation. You get wiped out.
So the loss isn't just your initial investment, it's everything. The risk is so magnified that being wrong means total failure.
And finally, scenario three is what I'd call blind decisions.
What do you mean by that?
This isn't about moving fast with 70% of the info. This is about acting with like 0% of the info. Or worse, acting based on a gut feeling or because someone is pressuring you.
So jumping into a business you haven't researched at all or falling for an obvious scam.
In those cases, delay is your only rational defense. You have to stop.
So the guiding principle here is the complete opposite. If the decision is irreversible, high leverage, or you're basically flying blind.
You slow down. You delay. You take the time to gather all the critical data you need, and you figure out your exit strategy before you even think about moving forward.
So if we put this all together in a simple matrix for everyone listening.
Most of the decisions you face in your career, in your personal growth, in starting new things, they fall into that reversible and medium risk category.
Which means for most of modern life.
The highest cost you're likely to pay is the opportunity cost you lose from doing nothing. In most cases, the worst decision you can make really is no decision.
It makes perfect sense when you lay it out rationally like that. But it's another thing to actually overcome that feeling in your gut, that deep psychological hesitation to act.
Oh, it is.
Why do we freeze up like that, even when we logically know that waiting is the more expensive choice?
To answer that, you have to look at how our brains are wired. At its core, your brain is a prediction machine.
A prediction machine?
Yeah. Its primary evolutionary job is to constantly predict what's going to happen next in the environment so that you can survive, find food, avoid getting eaten, save energy.
Okay, that makes sense.
And here's the critical part. Uncertainty to your brain equals a potential threat.
So when the outcome of an action is unknown, my brain just flags it as danger.
It registers that lack of predictability as a major risk, and it goes on high alert. It starts pouring resources into trying to figure it out.
So my brain, which evolved to spot a lion hiding in the grass.
A very immediate, visible threat.
Right. It uses that same paralyzing alarm system for something like the invisible long-term threat of a missed investment opportunity.
That is the great evolutionary mismatch. Our threat detection system is fine-tuned for immediate, tangible dangers. That's why we get so fixated on the immediate, tangible loss of a wrong decision losing money right now. And we underweight the slow, invisible threat of lost potential.
And that kicks off the whole neuroscientific alarm system.
It does. The first responder is always the amygdala.
The brain's security guard.
The brain's security guard. It's emotional processing center. As soon as uncertainty pops up, the amygdala just floods your system with stress hormones, especially cortisol. And that's where that low-grade, chronic feeling of anxiety comes from when you're facing a big choice.
You know, what's wild is that I've noticed that anxiety often goes down after I make a choice, even if it turns out to be the wrong one.
That's a super common finding in the research. Your brain often prefers a bad but certain outcome over living in that ambiguous state of possibility.
So my brain is willing to take a guaranteed loss just to turn off the alarm.
It craves certainty. Meanwhile, the logical part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to be doing all the rational planning,
it's working overtime.
It's burning itself out. It's trying to model every single possible future, running all these simulations. And it leads directly to that mental fatigue we talked about. The energy drain is just immense.
And our dopamine system is involved too, right?
It plays a huge role. We think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but it's really about reward prediction. High uncertainty means a high reward prediction error. The brain can't reliably figure out if the effort will be worth it.
So it just defaults to conserve energy mode.
Exactly. It would rather you stick with the predictable, low-reward activity than risk wasting energy on an uncertain gamble.
And all of this leads to these two massive psychological hurdles.
The first is our innate need for control. Uncertainty completely strips away our sense of control over the future, and for us humans, that is a primary source of anxiety.
And the second one is something called intolerance of uncertainty.
Yeah, or IU. It's actually a measurable psychological trait. Some people just react much more negatively to any uncertain situation, no matter how small or even potentially positive it is.
So if you're high in IU, you're pretty much guaranteed to get stuck in analysis paralysis.
It's almost a given, and then you have the single biggest, most damaging trap of them all.
Let me guess. Loss aversion.
Loss aversion. We all know it. The research shows we feel the pain of a loss about 2 to 2.5 times more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
And that just completely skews our math.
It's the anchor that holds us in place. That extreme sensitivity to a potential bad outcome just warps our entire risk calculation. The fear of losing $100 is so amplified that it just crushes the rational potential of gaining $200.
And that creates that dangerous cycle where we hold on to losing things for too long. A bad stock, a dead-end job.
Right. You delay taking action and accepting the loss, not because you think it's going to get better, but because the act of realizing the loss feels so much worse than just enduring the slow pain of stagnation.
So it's an old survival mechanism that's now actively working against our own well-being in the modern world.
It's sabotaging our efficiency and our long-term growth. And understanding these deep-seated psychological triggers, that's really the first step to building frameworks to override that panic button and default to action.
Okay, so we know why we freeze up and we know where delaying is the most costly. Now we need the tools. We need practical frameworks to actually force ourselves to move and start collecting that data.
I want actionable steps. How do I bypass the fear?
We're going to rely on 3 general principles for any situation where speed and learning are more important than being right the first time.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, and this is the bedrock of fast decision-making in business and even the military, is the 70% information principle.
70%. So you act when you have 70% of the information you think you need, not 100.
Exactly.
But why 70? Why not 80 or 90?
Because the effort it takes to get that last 30%, to go from being well-informed to being absolutely certain, is usually exponentially higher.
So the extra time you spend digging for that last bit of data?
The value of that data is almost always less than the opportunity you lose by delaying. If you wait for 100%, the window of opportunity is already closed.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second principle?
The minimum viable decision, or MVD.
Like a minimum viable product.
Same concept. You focus on the smallest, cheapest, quickest action you can take that will move the whole process forward. You don't launch the entire massive operation at once. You just launch the minimum necessary test.
And that contains the cost of being wrong, tying back to what we said about bounded costs.
Precisely. And third is the small bets strategy.
I like the sound of that.
Instead of committing all your resources to one single high-stakes leap of faith, you make a bunch of small, contained bets to test your ideas.
This lowers the initial cost if you're wrong. It gets you real-world feedback super fast, and it just takes the psychological pressure off the decision. If one small bet fails, hey, the portfolio is fine.
Okay, I love this. 70% rule, MVD, and small bets. So let's apply these to some real-life scenarios where people get stuck all the time.
Let's do it. Scenario 1, investing in an early-stage startup. The risk is massive, but the potential upside is exponential.
The classic high-risk, high-reward situation.
Right. The cost of indecision here is purely opportunity cost. You miss out on that potential 10 or 100x return because you waited too long.
So what's the action framework?
You use the small bets plus milestone review method. You only allocate a tiny fraction of your investment capital, maybe 1 or 2% max. You have to ensure that if this one bet goes to zero, your overall portfolio is completely fine.
So it's a truly reversible loss for you personally.
And you structure the investment as a test, not as a lifelong commitment. You set clear early milestones for the company. Validate the product, get the first 10 paying customers.
And then you review after a set period of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say 90 days. If they haven't hit those milestones, you accept that the bet didn't work out. You don't pour more money in. You've learned something for a small price.
So you're not waiting for the IPO to get involved. You're just placing a small, contained wager to get data on the team in the market.
You're dipping your toe in the water to check the temperature. You're not diving in head first.
All right, scenario 2, career change. You're in a stable job, but you're bored. The market for your skills is hot, but you're scared of jumping into an unknown company culture.
This is such a common one. The indecision cost here is relative loss. You're missing out on bigger salaries, learning new skills, expanding your network, and getting promoted faster. Your stability is actually costing you momentum.
And what's the framework here?
You apply the 70% information rule plus a 90-day target.
Okay, break that down.
If a new job offer meets 70% of your core criteria salary, the company's mission, your potential boss, you take it. The cost of a bad job is reversible. It's maybe 3 to 6 months of your time.
And the 90-day target.
They treat your first 90 days there as your evaluation period. That's your MVD. You're actively measuring, am I learning? Do I like the culture? Was the job what they promised?
And if it's a total disaster?
The job market is still there. The cost of jumping again is almost always less than the cost of staying miserable in a dead-end job for 2 years because you were afraid to leave.
Right. Don't let the search for the perfect job keep you on a treadmill that's going nowhere. Get on the next train and then decide if you like where it's going.
Nicely put. Okay, scenario 3. Pursuing a romantic interest. The classic dilemma. Risking a friendship for a potential relationship.
The indecision cost here is missing the golden window, right?
It's totally time-sensitive. Romantic interest isn't something that just waits around forever. If you hesitate, the moment can pass, or somebody else might step in.
So what's the framework? You can't exactly make a small bet here.
You absolutely can. You use low-cost detection. You do not rush in with some grand, high-stakes declaration of love.
Please don't do that.
Instead, you use MVDs. You increase the frequency of interaction. You invite them to do things with groups of friends. You perform small, low-threat tests of interest.
Like a casual coffee invitation, or giving a clear compliment and seeing how they react.
Yes. You're not launching an emotional nuclear warhead. You're just firing off a few chat missiles to see if there's any interest coming back. The risk of a little short-term awkwardness is so much less costly than the long-term regret of never knowing.
And even if you get rejected, at least you have an answer. You have certainty.
The amygdala can finally stand down. And you can redirect your energies somewhere else instead of wasting months in that ambiguous what-if zone.
Okay, scenario 4. Buying a big appliance, like a fridge or a TV. People can get stuck on this for months, waiting for the perfect model or the absolute lowest price.
And the indecision cost is actually pretty concrete. You miss the big seasonal sales, which is a measurable opportunity cost. And you waste a ton of mental energy comparing tiny details that barely make a difference in real life.
So the action framework.
Use a price threshold plus MVD. First, you define your maximum price and your minimum functional requirements. Like it has to be this big, it has to have this energy rating, and so on.
The non-negotiable.
Your non-negotiables. The second a product that meets those criteria goes on sale and hits your price threshold, you buy it immediately.
So you don't let the search for the absolute perfect optimal machine delay you from getting something that is 95% perfect at a huge discount.
The value of that last 5% is rarely worth the extra time and money. Don't spend 6 months researching 8K TVs until your current one just dies. Buy the 4K one that's on sale today and start enjoying it.
Love it. Okay, final one. Scenario 5, booking international travel. The black hole of comparing flight prices and hotel reviews for weeks on end.
Oh, this one gets so many people. The indecision cost is huge. Price surges and sold-out flights. Travel is one of the most time-sensitive purchases you can make. The cost of delay can literally double the price of your trip.
So what's the framework?
Lock the key resources first. You use the MVD principle to book the most critical, most price-sensitive things immediately. That's your flights and your first night's accommodation.
You secure the core of the trip.
You secure the engine of the trip. Then, for the rest of the itinerary tours, other hotels, rental cars, you can use small bets. You book things that have flexible cancellation policies.
That's smart. So you get the main value locked in at a good price, but you still have time to fine-tune the reversible details later without risking a massive price hike.
Exactly. You have to get the plane tickets before everyone else books them. Then you can worry about whether the second hotel has a slightly better view of the ocean.
To sum it all up then, the core takeaway for you listening is,
if the decision is reversible and the opportunity cost is high, you have to default to speed. Use small, bounded actions. And if the decision is irreversible or has high leverage, that's when you slow down, gather all the info, and have a clear exit plan.
The vast landscape of your life and your career demands velocity, not paralysis.
Well said.
So we've navigated the tricky wiring of the amygdala, the scary, compounding nature of opportunity cost, and the strategic value of being wrong. The main lesson seems pretty clear.
Most of the choices we face every single day are two-way doors. They're reversible.
And in those situations, taking action, any action, gives you that immediate, invaluable data that helps guide you forward.
Whereas indecision gives you nothing but anxiety, mental drain, and guaranteed stagnation. Failure is a learning event. Inaction is just a slow decline.
And we have a final provocative thought for you to carry with you this week.
The cost of not acting is always quantifiable, even if it feels invisible at first.
So the next time you find yourself paralyzed by a choice, just take a minute. Try to actually quantify the potential cost of staying perfectly still for the next month.
What's the missed investment gain? The lost networking opportunity? The emotional energy you'll waste just worrying about it?
That calculation alone should be the motivation you need to just make a move.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this framework helps you move a little more decisively in your own life.
Yeah, go out there and make some decisions. Even if a few of them are wrong, at least you'll learn something.
Please remember to subscribe to Sip&Talk wherever you get your podcasts. And also, check out our good friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife. There's always some fun stuff and cool travel vlogs going on over there.
Definitely check it out. We'll see you all next time.
Bye for now.